People's Liberation Army has now declared 7 restricted zones near Taiwan and say that they will extend a range of military exercises through Monday. These provocative actions are a significant escalation. We've seen how Beijing has attempted to change the status quo on Taiwan for some time. For example, more than doubling the number of aircraft flown over the center line that separates China and Taiwan over the past 2 years, pursuing economic coercion, political interference, and cyber attacks against Taiwan. Now, they've taken dangerous acts to a new level. The United States has conveyed to the PRC consistently and repeatedly that we do not seek and will not provoke a crisis. President Tsai has said the same thing. China has chosen to overreact and use Speaker Pelosi's visit as a pretext to increase provocative military activity in and around the Taiwan Strait. We anticipated that China might take steps like this. In fact, we described this exact scenario. The fact is, the Speaker's visit was peaceful. There is no justification for this extreme, disproportionate, and escalatory military response. Let me say again that nothing has changed about our One China policy, which is guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 communiques, and the 6 assurances. We don't want unilateral changes to the status quo from either side. We do not support Taiwan independence. We expect cross-strait differences to be resolved peacefully, not coercively or by force. We're not alone in this. ASEAN released a statement yesterday about the need to de-escalate tensions in the Taiwan Strait. The G7 has rejected Beijing's attempt to coerce and intimidate Taiwan. There are serious concerns not only for Taiwan, but for the possibility that these actions by Beijing will destabilize the broader region. For our part, the United States will not be provoked. We'll continue to do what we've done for a long time. We'll support cross-strait peace and stability and a free and open Indo-Pacific. You'll see that in the days and weeks ahead. We will stick by our allies and partners and work with and through regional organizations to enable friends in the region to make their own decisions, free from coercion. We'll take further steps to demonstrate our commitment to the security of our allies in the region, including Japan. We will fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows. We'll continue to conduct standard air and maritime transits through the Taiwan Strait, consistent with our long-standing approach to working with allies and partners to uphold freedom of navigation and overflight, which has enabled the region's prosperity for many decades. Almost half the global container fleet and nearly 90% of the world's largest ships pass through the straits this year. That's just one reason why these actions by Beijing are so disruptive. We'll continue to support Taiwan in cross-strait peace and stability. Secretary Austin has directed that the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan remain on station in the general area to monitor the situation. In short, the world will see us continue to support the status quo in the Taiwan Strait and advance our shared goals throughout the Indo-Pacific. That is what the region expects of us, to be a steady and responsible leader.
Mr. Secretary, I wanted to follow up on your remarks on Taiwan. We've heard from the US side that it's maintained communications with China over the fallout from Speaker Pelosi's visit. Can you tell us how exactly that's been done? We saw Foreign Minister Wang Yi walk out of yesterday's dinner, but he was at the EAS today. Have you had any contact with him at all in Cambodia? And has the United States asked Taiwan to show restraint in response to China's military activity? And one more of you, if I could. We saw you make a point of walking into last night's dinner with Foreign Minister Hayashi. Was that a show of solidarity with Japan after these missiles?
Let me start with the last part first. Foreign Minister Hayashi is a good friend and colleague, and sometimes a coincidence is just a coincidence. We happened to be walking in together because we were talking together in advance of the dinner. But irrespective of that, we stand in strong solidarity with our partner and ally, Japan, including with regard to the very dangerous actions that China has taken by firing off these missiles, including 5 that, according to Japan, have landed in its exclusive economic zone. With regard to China more broadly, we have open lines of communication. When I had the opportunity to see Foreign Minister Wang Yi a few weeks ago in Bali, we had a lengthy conversation then about Taiwan. The question of the possibility of the speaker's visit came up, and I was extremely clear with him about the importance of not using that visit, if she decided to proceed with it, as some kind of pretext for escalation or other actions that China has now, in fact, taken. In the meeting that we just had with all of the ASEAN foreign ministers, we had a vigorous communication about the situation in and around Taiwan. And I reiterated the points that we've made publicly as well as directly to Chinese counterparts in recent days. Again, about the fact that they should not use the visit as a pretext for escalation, for provocative actions, that there is no possible justification for what they've done, and urge them to cease these actions. But I think what's very important is this is not just our view. It's the view of many countries throughout this region. I refer you to the statement that ASEAN itself put out yesterday. It's the view of countries well beyond the region, including the G7 countries. You saw the statement that the G7 put out. And we look to China to take account of the views of many countries around the world. For our part, we don't seek and we do not want a crisis. We're prepared to manage what Beijing chooses to do. I think that's the case for all else involved. And it's in no one's interest that this escalate further and that there be any kind of crisis. But we look to Beijing to act accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You've mentioned several ways in which the U.S. might try and counter some of the aggression that you say you've seen from Beijing. All of these are military counterweights that you've presented. And I think in general there's been a lot of talk from the U.S. government about new military alliances like AUKUS or partnerships, maybe putting more missiles in the region, things like that. Do you think that there's an inevitable spiral going on in the region where militarization on all sides is occurring, which might lead to greater crises? And then what do you say to the widespread criticism that the U.S. is refraining from entering into ambitious trade agreements in the region and is thus missing an economic piece of competing with China here? People say that IPEF is a pale shadow of what TPP is. And finally, do you have any comments on Brittany Griner's conviction yesterday in Moscow, and have you spoken with Lavrov about this here? Lavrov told reporters earlier today that he was surprised you hadn't tried to talk to him about various issues. Thanks.
Great, thank you. First, there's nothing inevitable about crisis, nothing inevitable about conflict. On the contrary, I think it's incumbent upon us and incumbent upon China to act responsibly and to manage what is a very vigorous competition between us, to manage that competition responsibly. That was very much a key part of the conversation that I had with Wang Yi, the foreign minister, over 5 hours in Bali just a couple of weeks ago. And it reflects what I said today as well, including with all of our ASEAN colleagues. I think what we're hearing around the region is an expectation from all of the countries, virtually, all of the partners in ASEAN, to do just that. That is our responsibility. That's exactly why we've made very clear that we do not want, we do not seek, and we will not take actions to provoke a crisis. We call on China to stand back from the actions it's taken, which are a serious overreaction to the peaceful visit of Speaker Pelosi to Taiwan, and I think consistent with what they've been doing for several years now, which is making it clear that they will no longer abide by the status quo when it comes to Taiwan. What we've said all along, and it's been the foundation of our management of Taiwan for more than 4 decades, successfully, in making sure that it was not a source of conflict and that the people in Taiwan could flourish, is we have said that the differences between the mainland and Taiwan need to be resolved peacefully, not coercively, not by force. So it is incumbent upon China to continue to seek to resolve those differences peacefully, not to use coercion, and certainly not to use force. But what we've seen in the last couple of years is China moving in that direction. And what we're hearing from countries around the region is that that's the last thing that they want. I'd add also, we spent a lot of time talking about so many of the challenges that our countries face together. The need, the desire that I think people in all of our countries have to build a sustainable recovery from COVID, to continue to manage global health challenges, to deal with climate change, to pursue the need for an energy transition and new energy infrastructure. These are the kinds of things that our citizens expect us to be working on together. That's what the United States is committed to doing. What we don't seek and what we don't want are efforts by any country, whether it's China with regard to Taiwan or the South China Sea, or Russia in terms of its aggression against Ukraine, to disrupt international peace and security, because it's incredibly dangerous. It violates basic principles that undergird relations between countries, for example, sovereignty, territorial integrity, independence, and it takes time, focus, and attention away from the things that our people want us to be working on together. So that was one of the cases that I also made today with the Chinese foreign minister, the Russian foreign minister, and all of our colleagues from ASEAN. With regard to trade, we put forward, as you know, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, and it's gotten an extremely positive response from more than a dozen countries that have signed on to be founding members, and it remains an open, inclusive process, and I expect that other countries will join in. And what IPEF, as the acronym goes, focuses on are economic areas that are going to be critical to the 21st century economy. For example, digital trade. For example, secure supply chains. For example, governance, combating corruption, all of which are absolutely vital to trade and investment moving forward. Trade facilitation is also a part of that. The response has been extremely positive, and we're now in the process of really building it together with all of the founding members, shaping the different pillars of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework.